For the first 10 years of my wife and I's married life, we were on what you would call the wrong side of the poverty line. You used to call it getting by or just making do, and that's exactly what it was. We always tried to make sure our kids had what they needed. But of course, as a guy, I always needed gas-powered equipment, things like mowers and weed whippers and chainsaws to cut firewood in order to keep the yard and everything up and going. And so I had to rely on hand-me-downs from my dad, stuff I'd scavenge from the dump, wore-down products that I got from the handyman at the hardware store where I worked, things that customers had dropped off that they didn't want anymore. And I had to make do with stuff that I could barely get by with because I knew I couldn't run out and buy something brand new. I remember when I bought it was $165, it was a brand new push gas mower. I was elated. I had to save like a year to get that. So, what do they say? Necessity's the mother of all invention. And the fact that we lived in abject poverty or close to it for a long time meant that I had to learn a lot about small engine repair, about keeping things running long past their expected life cycle, and about just getting things up and going when they were giving me trouble. So I'm no expert, but I've done a lot and I've learned a lot about being practical and keeping things going. So this week I want to share with you guys 7 things you can do if your generator won't start or won't keep running. Hey guys, Toolman Tim here. Welcome back to the workshop where we build business, create community, find freedom, and share success. Shaking things up just a little bit this week, but it's Saturday, which means it's time for the weekend workshop, my favorite segment of the week. And before we dive into the 7 things that you can do to keep your generator running or getting it to start, real quick, if you want to know more about who I am and find out what all I do, run by toolmantim.co. You can find out about the weekly podcast, the monthly newsletter, my social media links, and the shop, where I have a ton of different products, not that I sell, but links that I push you in the right direction of Amazon, so that you can find out about products that have worked for me. They meet the Toolman Tim seal of approval. I even have a preparedness section over there on things like jiggle siphons and backup battery bricks and battery chargers, all that kind of stuff. Things I've used in the real world that have worked for me. So, all right guys, like I said, as you know, for many years out of marriage, we had to make do with what we had. And in some respects, we still do that. But you know, I know a lot of people in desperation can't get their generator running, or, like I used to be really bad at, neglect regular maintenance and then it wouldn't start, or not run it every 2 months and then it wouldn't start. So I wanted to share with you guys 7 things I've learned, and a lot of them are dead simple and most people can do almost all of these, but I wanted to share with you the 7 things that you can do to get your generator started or to keep it running if it won't run. And like I said, most of these are simple, and you might sit there and you're like, Tim, why are you treating us like an idiot? I'm not trying to be like that. But sometimes there's just the one, if I go through all 7 of these and there's one thing that you learn, I've succeeded. And you know what? There's way more technical things that could go wrong, and you might say, Tim, that's not right. That's not the first one you check. And that could be too. But these are the 7 things that I go through when I'm like, all right, this gas engine won't start. I bought a Champion 3,000 watt generator from a guy, sight unseen, about 2 years ago. And he said, I think he wanted 150 for it. I ended up getting it for 80 bucks because when he pulled it out of storage and tried to get it to start, he couldn't get it to start. He said, man, it's weird. It started when I put it away 2 years ago. And I thought, oh, I know what's wrong with this. I can fix it. And he's like, you know what? If you give me 80 bucks, it's yours. So I took it home. Anyway, changed all the fuel out. And that was really all it was old nasty gas. So let me tell you all about the 7 things. All right, number 1, and don't take offense to this, but check the gas shutoff. Now, almost all generators, if you follow the fuel line down, you'll find a little gray on-off switch. And I have been guilty of this in the past on multiple occasions of nearly giving myself a good case of tennis elbow, pulling on a damn generator 1,000 times when I didn't look and realize, oh yeah, when you put that into storage last year, Tim, you turned the fuel off. Or when you put it on the truck to travel, you turned the fuel off. And now, dumbass, you forgot to turn it back on. So, it should go without saying, but if a generator can't get fuel, it's going to have a hard time starting. So check that fuel shutoff first. That's the simplest and easiest, and hopefully that's all it is. The second one is almost as much of a duh moment. I've had them a ton of times. So check your oil level. A lot of generators, especially the more expensive ones, if you happen to get low on oil, so say if you changed it, didn't put quite enough up, or say it's getting a little old, like a lot of these that we have to keep running, and it's one of them that actually burns oil quite a bit. And if that's the case, it gets down to a certain level, a lot of generators are going to have a low oil shutoff or cutoff. So check your oil level. If it's below the minimum, top it up. That may not be it. In my experience, that hasn't worked as often as the gas shutoff has, but always check your oil level. That's another dead simple one. And of course, we always want to go the simplest solutions first, because you could be like me and I went to a bank property that was empty and had to drill the locks out, and I spent a half an hour drilling a lock out and cussing and swearing because it was just driving me nuts. I ended up breaking a couple of drill bits off, ended up having to knock the knob off with a hammer, and then I go inside, I go to the other door, and the other door was unlocked. So always check the simple things first. You can save yourself a lot of cussing and a lot of frustration. Number 3, and that can be dirty or skunky old gas. So this is one where you use your sniffer. And of course, this is still simple. So if you have absolutely no experience with gas-powered engines or anything like this, you can still handle this. The first thing you want to do is open up, and don't get high off the fumes, but open up your gas tank and give it a sniff. And the new modern gas, they tend to go off really, really quick, and they lose a lot of their octane or, ability to actually even start off of. And a lot of times gas that a generator will run off of, it really can't get started because it's old. And anyway, so open up your gas tank, give it a whiff, and if it smells funky, skunky, or weird, it's probably time to get it out. So there's a few ways to do it. If you have a little battery pump or something like that, or actually a hand pump's probably better. But anyway, if you can pump all that fuel out of there, great. If not, follow your fuel line down. Again, it's just on the generator. Follow it down to where it goes into a little box. Unclip that one clip and let it drain into a container. That's the simplest way. Get as much of that nasty old gas out of there that you can. If you can't get all of that nasty old gas out of there, there's just a little bit left. A few things you can do. Top it up completely with fresh gas. I don't love that idea because you're still leaving that old gas in there, but it can help. But one of my favorite things is to get a can of Seafoam, go to your local Napa or auto parts store or even Walmart, buy it on sale, buy a bunch of it because I love the stuff. It's like liquid gold, it's magic in a can. And dump a scientific measurement of a few glugs into that nasty old gas. Maybe mix some new gas in there if you want, and that may be enough to get you going. But honestly, if the gas is old, skunky, and nasty, and it doesn't smell good, the best thing you can do is get as much of that out of there as you can, put as much fresh gas in there, and then put some Seafoam in there. Number 4 is a dirty or worn out spark plug. So like I said, some of these are dead simple. And a spark plug is incredible insurance. It's cheap insurance. Even at our worst times, I used to try to keep a spark plug or two on hand. They're a couple of bucks at most auto parts stores. So if you're not sure, take that spark plug out, flip it over, and if it looks like it's burnt or, heaven help that it's, actually cracked or something, but if it's burnt and full of discharge and debris or burnt up fuel, that kind of stuff, throw it away. Now, if you are absolutely in a hard way and in a spot where you cannot get a new spark plug, you can take really fine emery cloth, and on the top of a spark plug you'll see that little tiny, almost looks like a candy cane. If you can get a little bit of emery cloth through there and clean up those points, sometimes that's worked. I've had luck with that. It's worked sometimes, but honestly, the best thing is to keep a couple of those spark plugs on hand. Now, if you haven't, pull one of them out, run down to Walmart, run anywhere, grab that number before you even go in. Take that number off the spark plug, plug it into Google, and find a cross match, because if you go into those big box stores asking for a spark plug, you're going to get like Hank Hill, where he gets so mad because nobody can help him, nobody has it. Anyway, so you want to know, first off, when you get to the store, find out what brand of spark plugs they keep, and then that way you'll have the cross reference already. You just give the person the number, make it dead simple for them, and buy 2 spark plugs. Keep one on the shelf for when this happens again, and put that new fresh one in there. Because one time I actually did give myself a really nasty case of tennis elbow trying to start a push mower, and it was simply because it was a shitty old spark plug. As soon as I replaced that, the thing started first go. And my dad and I worked on that for like 2 hours, pulling and pulling and pulling. And my elbow was wrecked for like 6 months afterwards, simply because I didn't do the smart and simple thing of changing out a spark plug. So those are the first 4. Those are all dead simple things you can do if your generator won't start, or if it's giving you grief running, it won't stay running. So those 4, pretty simple. So number 5 is a dirty carburetor. Now this is where the seafoam comes back in. This one gets a little more technical, but again, if you follow your fuel line down, you'll see a little, kind of a silvery box like this, and it has valves in it. First off, if you don't know what a carburetor is, that's okay. Don't do this by yourself to start with. Google your generator. Google, what does a carburetor look like? And honestly, a lot of times what happens is they have rubber valves in there, and they have little, I don't even know what to call them, but needle points and springs. And that old gas gets in that carburetor, and it gets nasty and gross, and it gets varnishy, and it sticks everything. So the first thing you want to do with a carburetor that probably is, and a lot of times, so first off, if your fuel's not turned off and it's not a bad spark plug, this is the one that has given me, that I've done the best with over the years at fixing things. And this is where a lot of times, because most problems with generators tend to be the fact that they've set for a friggin' year and they won't start. So where do you start on a carburetor? First off, you're going to see a screw on the bottom. You're going to loosen that screw, and you're going to open it up, and a little bit of old nasty gas is going to come out of there. So whatever's been sitting in there is going to come out. Now there's a lot of different ways you can do it from there. You can spray up inside with brake clean. Some people like doing that. Some people don't like doing that. Whatever you're happy with. Get that old nasty gas out. Pour a few glugs of seafoam in your gas tank, and then try to start it. A lot of times that's all it's going to take. And what's going to happen is when you go to start that, once that fresh gas with the seafoam works its way through, and you're going to pull a few times, it's going to work its way through, then you're going to get all this nasty, thick, black, gray smoke, white smoke coming out the back of all that carbon built up. That seafoam works wonders a lot of times. Now, if it gets worse than that, there's a few other things you can do, and it depends on how technical you want to be. But the first one you can do is, if you go over to where your air filter is, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, and every generator is different, so you're going to have to look your manual, but the air filter usually has a cover with a couple of snap things on it. Flip those off, then remove the either sponge or paper air filter, and inside you're going to see a circle with a little flap. And that is part of your choke that allows fuel or air to get into the carburetor and mix it up. So if you turn that to the open, it's going to leave it going like this, and you can stick a nozzle in there. If you can get a nozzle in there, what you want to do is give it a liberal spray or 2 sprays of starter fluid. And a lot of times, this is an incredible hack. I learned this from a YouTuber years ago. If you can open up that carburetor, so open the choke so that you can see the circle and the flap is perpendicular to the opening, get that nozzle in there, give it a couple of generous sprays of starting fluid, put everything back the way it should be, give it a pull, and a lot of times that's enough to start the engine going. And the worst part with the generator is getting it started that very first time. Once you do, it tends to want to keep running. So give all that a shot. Like I said, the carburetor may be, it may be beyond some people's reach, or some people that, it's just too much for you, and that's okay. A few other options you can do if you're, adventurous but not too adventurous. Take the incoming fuel line off, spray brake clean through there, or WD-40 or something like that. Let it dry out. And if it gets too bad, you may need to rebuild your carburetor. There's a whole nother video on that. I've done it myself. I'm not going to give you all the instructions on it, but what you need to do is take your carburetor off, find the model number on it, and order a repack kit for it, and then go on YouTube and watch the videos. It's not as hard as you think, but as long as you don't mind handling tiny little pieces, you can do it. But that's not something you're going to do in 10 minutes to get a generator running that isn't running. That's going to be something for down the road. Okay, number 6 is another dead simple one. And this actually happened to my son and I with our push mower on the weekend, and that's a dirty, nasty, gross air filter. If your generator can't pull in enough air, it's not going to start, no matter how hard you try. So what I tend to do, of course, go over on the side of the generator, find your air filter cover, flip the 2 things off, open it up, and I look at the air filter and I'm like, yep, that's dirty. Now most nowadays are them nasty paper cartridge ones, and you got to throw them away once they get dirty. I always loved the old foam ones because you could wash them out, put a little bit of dish detergent in them, clean them out really good, get them dry, then put a little bit of motor oil in them, massage it in, put it back in, and you're good to go for a few more months. But if it's dirty, what I do, haul that filter out of there and then try to start it. And if it starts right up, you're like, oh yeah, that's what it was, a dirty air filter. And you can run a generator for a while without an air filter. So if you don't have a backup and you need to run your generator, run it. It's okay. Just don't do it forever. Get a new one as soon as you can. Keep it away from as much dirt and dust and leaves and all that crap as you can. But if you can, try it without the air filter in there, and a lot of times that's simple too. That's probably the third most common one that I run into. Fuel shut off, carburetor gummed up, or a dirty air filter. And most of that's just due to neglect on maintenance and that sort of thing. But sometimes, you know, you'll find a rat or a mouse or something that's made a nest in there. So open that up, take it off, try to start it without it in there. If it starts, you know that was your problem. Okay, and number 7, another, I would call this a moderate skill level. It's really not that difficult. But again, if you had old skunky gas, or say you poured, you know, gas that had been in an old tank or something and you had some debris in there, you can end up dealing with a plugged fuel line. And that is pretty simple to fix, but a lot of what you'll know is, and you're gonna, so you want to find your fuel tank, you want to follow your fuel line down to where it goes into the carburetor, and there's going to be 2 little squeeze clamp. Use needle nose pliers to squeeze that clamp, pull it back, pull your line off. If fuel starts running through, you know you don't have a plugged fuel line on that side, put it back on, take it off. Now follow it from the carburetor down to wherever it goes from there. Take it off there, and if fuel comes out there, you know that's not the problem either. But that way you're figuring out first, is it a clogged fuel line from the gas tank down to the carburetor? And if that runs clear, then try from the carburetor down. Then you know you may have a problem in the carburetor or a clogged line there. But most times I find it gets clogged before the carburetor. And what you can do, again, take that fuel line off, take a can of brake clean with that, you know, red nozzle that everybody always throws away, stick it in the fuel line and blow it a few times. Then dump it upside down and see if it starts running free. If you start getting fuel through, great. Put it all back together, try it again. If it does it again, you're probably going to need to clean out your fuel tank. But a lot of times it was just a little bit of dirt or sediment that got in there and kind of got lodged. You get it blown out, you're good to go. So I hope those 7 things helped you guys. Those are the 7 things that I always check when trying to get a generator started that won't start for me. Because you know, I learned all of these in the School of Hard Knocks. I would go to work and I'd ask our repair guy there, I'd be like, what can I try? And he'd be like, try this. So then I'd go home and it wouldn't work. And these were the days pre-YouTube. There were videos online at that time. This was like 2003 to 2005 and a little bit later. And, you know, I would have to really dig to look, but there wasn't a ton of stuff out there like there is now. So it's great. Now you can lean on other people's experience a ton without having to spend all the time, trial and error of hollering at somebody, hey, what can I do? And that won't work. Try this, try that. Now you can just try a whole bunch of things all together. So I hope these 7, you know, if there's anything in there you don't agree with or anything in there you think I left out, let me know, because I love doing this. I love sharing my information. I love sharing the knowledge that I've learned through many years in the School of Hard Knocks. And I hope it helps you guys be able to start your generator when maybe the power's out and your generator won't start, or the damn thing just won't keep running. So if you're new here, guys, and you want to stick around, hit the subscribe button. Introduce yourself in the comments. Let us know who you are. Share your knowledge. If you have video ideas you want to share with me, I would love that too. I'm always looking for new stuff that I can share. And I always appreciate you guys dropping by. You know I do. I know you can spend your time anywhere and you're willing to come and hang out here with me in the workshop. So I appreciate that, guys. So that's it for me this week. Take care, everybody. And as always, stay happy, stay healthy, and have a great week.